My name is Mara Chin, and I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania where hard work was supposed to mean something. I learned the hard way that in corporate America, loyalty can become your prison, and the person you trust most can become your warden. This is the story of how my boss tried to control my future, and how one phone call destroyed everything he'd built on my back. The email notification appeared on my screen at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that would change everything. Transfer request denied. My hands went cold. I read it again, searching for an error, a misunderstanding, anything. But there it was, clear as day, per internal recommendation from your current supervisor. My heart dropped into my stomach. Just last week, Alex from the New York branch had called to congratulate me, saying my transfer was practically approved. I'd already started looking at apartments in Brooklyn. Then Rick walked into my cubicle, that familiar smug smile playing at his lips. "Sorry, Mara," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "You're just too valuable here. You're not going anywhere until I say so." The fluorescent lights suddenly felt too bright, the air too thin. My colleagues pretended not to notice, but I saw their pitying glances. Rick stood there waiting for my response, enjoying my humiliation. My eyes burned with tears I refused to let fall. But something else was building behind them, something harder, colder. 6 months earlier, I'd worshipped the ground Rick Dalton walked on. He was the director everyone wanted to work for, charismatic, confident, with a reputation for developing talent. When I first joined his analytics team, he'd called me a breath of fresh air, and exactly what this department needs. I remembered the day he praised my first major report in front of the whole team. "This is what excellence looks like, people. Mara gets it." I'd felt 10 feet tall. He gave me challenging projects, included me in strategy meetings, and told me I had serious potential for leadership. I stayed late fixing his Excel models, caught errors in his presentations before they went to clients, and volunteered for every impossible deadline. When he needed someone to rebuild the entire logistics framework over a weekend, I canceled my sister's birthday dinner and delivered it Monday morning. "You're the backbone of this department," he told me, squeezing my shoulder like a proud mentor. I believed him completely. I believed I was being groomed for something bigger. Then Rick won the Excellence in Innovation Award at the company's annual gala. I watched from my table as he walked across the stage, accepting the crystal trophy and handshake from the CEO. His speech thanked the incredible team, but mentioned no names. The project he was being honored for, the logistics optimization model that saved the company $2.3 million annually, was mine. Every algorithm, every data point, every recommendation came from my solo work over 3 months. I'd sent him weekly updates and he'd replied with brief "looks good" messages. Now he stood in a spotlight, basking in applause for my innovation. After the ceremony, I approached him carefully. "Rick, I was hoping maybe next time we could clarify project contributions." His expression shifted subtly, like a door closing. "Mara, this was a team effort. Don't make it about individual glory. That's not how we operate here." His tone was gentle but cold. "You're still learning how things work." I nodded and walked away, something uncomfortable settling in my chest. That night I couldn't sleep. After the award, things changed in ways I couldn't quite name at first. Rick started requiring me to copy him on every email, even routine internal messages. "Just want to stay in the loop," he explained. "Help you maintain consistency." But it felt less like mentorship and more like surveillance. He began editing my client communications before I could send them, sometimes changing my analysis in ways that actually made it less accurate. When I questioned a particular revision, he sighed heavily. "Mara, I've been doing this for 15 years. Trust the process." He positioned himself as the gatekeeper to everything. Client meetings happened without me, my name disappeared from presentation decks, and suddenly all my work was routed through him before going anywhere. In team meetings, he'd interrupt my explanations to clarify points I'd already made clearly. Once, when I presented quarterly findings, he cut me off mid-sentence. "What Mara's trying to say is..." Then he repeated exactly what I'd been saying, as if I needed translation. My colleagues looked uncomfortable but said nothing. The call from Alex Brennan came on an ordinary Wednesday morning. "Mara, this is Alex from the New York division. I've been reviewing your work on the supply chain analytics and I'm genuinely impressed." My heart jumped. Alex had a legendary reputation, brilliant, fair, and known for building powerhouse teams. We're opening a senior analyst position here, and honestly, you're exactly who we need. Would you be interested in applying? I could barely contain my excitement. New York. A fresh start. Recognition for my actual work. Yes, absolutely, I managed to say professionally, though I wanted to scream with joy. We talked for 20 minutes about the role, the projects, the team culture. Send me your formal application by Friday. I think you'd be perfect for this. As I hung up, I noticed Rick standing near the break room, close enough to have overheard. Our eyes met briefly. His jaw was tight, his expression unreadable. He turned and walked back to his office without a word. I felt a small flutter of unease but pushed it away. This was my chance. If you're enjoying this story so far, please take a moment to like this story and also hit the subscribe button to get notified of our new series. The next day, Rick called me into his office with a warm smile I hadn't seen in weeks. Mara, I heard about the New York opportunity. That's fantastic. I was surprised by his enthusiasm. I want you to know I'll put in a strong recommendation. You've earned this. Relief flooded through me. Maybe I'd misjudged him. Maybe his recent behavior was just stress. He spent the next hour coaching me for the interview, sharing insider tips about what Alex valued, even helping me refine my presentation approach. You're going to crush this, he said, patting my shoulder. 3 days later, I nailed the interview. Alex seemed genuinely excited and I left the video call feeling confident. That afternoon, Rick forwarded me an email with the subject line, "Congratulations." My hands shook as I opened it. It appeared to be from Alex, saying my transfer was approved pending final formalities. "See," Rick said, appearing at my cubicle. "Told you I'd take care of you." I hugged him, thanking him profusely, already mentally packing. What I didn't know then was that email wasn't from Alex at all. 2 weeks later, staring at the denial on my screen with Rick standing smugly in my cubicle, the pieces suddenly clicked together. That congratulatory email had come from an internal address designed to look like Alex's. Rick had fabricated it. Why? I asked, my voice barely steady. I followed him to his office, shutting the door behind us. Why did you block it? He didn't even pretend to look guilty. He leaned back in his chair, fingers laced behind his head. Look, Mara, be realistic. You'd drown out there without my guidance. Alex doesn't know your limitations like I do. I'm keeping you where you belong, where you can actually succeed. Each word was a small blade. You sabotaged me, I whispered. I protected you, he corrected, his tone patronizing. One day you'll thank me. He actually smiled and I saw it then, he was enjoying this. My pain, my disappointment, my powerlessness. It fed something in him. My voice cracked as I spoke. I trusted you. And I've taken excellent care of that trust, he replied smoothly. I walked out of his office, not broken but burning inside with a cold, focused rage I'd never felt before. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table across from my best friend Nora, who listened to the whole story with growing disbelief. Mara, you realize what this is, right? He's afraid of you. I looked up, surprised. What? Think about it. You do the actual work. You have the skills and client relationships. If you leave, his house of cards falls. You're not his protege, you're his insurance policy. The words hit like cold water. Everything suddenly made horrifying sense. I spent the next 3 hours going through my email archives, downloading everything to a personal folder. Every project timeline, every email chain, every piece of work I'd created. I organized it meticulously, dates, recipients, deliverables. If Rick wanted to control me, he'd created an opponent instead. As I worked, I found an old presentation file. When I checked the metadata, my name had been deleted from the author field and replaced with Rick's. The original creation date was there, though. Evidence. My hands steadied as I saved everything to 3 different locations. Over the following weeks, I became a ghost in plain sight. I watched Rick with new eyes, noting every pattern, every shortcut, every small lie. When he presented his analysis in meetings, I noticed he never understood the underlying methodology, he just repeated my executive summaries. When clients asked detailed questions, he deflected or promised to follow up, then frantically messaged me for answers. I didn't confront him. Instead, I started building an invisible trail. Every report I created, I embedded hidden metadata with my authorship. Every analysis, I kept detailed methodology notes in my personal files. Every error I caught in his work I documented with timestamps before fixing it. I made myself indispensable while ensuring my fingerprints were traceable for anyone who looked carefully. 2 months in, something unexpected happened. During a client call, the director of operations from Dominion Freight asked Rick, "Why did you change your analysis method? This quarter's accuracy isn't matching your usual standard." Rick froze, clearly panicking. He'd been using my old framework but didn't understand it well enough to adapt. I watched his face go pale as he stammered through a non-answer. A week later, HR flagged a small financial discrepancy in one of Rick's quarterly reports. Nothing major but enough to trigger an internal audit. I was in the break room when he found me, his face flushed and panicked. "Mara, I need you to look at the Q2 numbers. Something's off and the audit team is breathing down my neck." I pulled up the file that night and immediately saw the problem. He'd manually adjusted figures in the final presentation without updating the source data. The numbers didn't reconcile. It was sloppy work, probably done late at night when he was rushing. "Can you fix it?" he asked the next morning, his voice tight with stress. "Make the source match the presentation. They're going to review it tomorrow." I looked at him carefully. This was asking me to falsify data. "Rick, we should just explain the discrepancy." "Mara, just do it. Please." His desperation was almost pathetic. I made the corrections, ensuring everything reconciled perfectly. But first, I downloaded the original files, complete with Rick's manual adjustments and timestamp, and uploaded both versions to my secured personal cloud drive. Insurance, I told myself. Just insurance. Rick scheduled a major presentation to the executive leadership team, calling it an opportunity to showcase our department's strategic vision. In reality, he was trying to rebuild his credibility after the audit scare. He assigned me to build the entire deck, 40 slides covering market analysis, optimization recommendations, and projected ROI. I worked nights and weekends creating what I knew was excellent work. When I delivered it, Rick barely glanced through before claiming it. "This is exactly what I envisioned," he said, not thanking me. The morning of the presentation, he called a rehearsal with our team. I watched him fumble through my slides, reading bullet points without understanding the underlying analysis. When he reached the statistical modeling section, he completely misread a regression chart, confusing correlation with causation. "Rick," I interrupted gently, "that's actually showing the inverse relationship." "Mara, I've got this," he snapped. But he didn't. He continued butchering the explanation until I had to publicly correct him to save the presentation from disaster. His face reddened with barely contained anger. Our team sat in uncomfortable silence. The actual presentation to leadership was worse. Rick, perhaps overconfident from past successes, decided to add some spontaneity by pulling in outdated slides from a previous deck, thinking they'd strengthen his narrative. They didn't. Within 10 minutes, the CFO noticed inconsistencies between the data trends. "These market share numbers don't align with what you showed in Q3, she observed, frowning at her tablet. Rick started sweating, his confident tone wavering as he tried to explain. The COO chimed in. "And this optimization timeline seems unrealistic given your resource constraints." Rick fumbled, clicking through slides, desperately searching for support. I sat in the back row, taking detailed notes, watching his credibility crumble in real time. Near the end, I caught the CFO glancing at me. She'd been in meetings where I'd presented before. After an awkward 90 minutes, the executives thanked Rick politely, the kind of polite that means they weren't impressed. As people filed out, I overheard one VP whisper to another, "Didn't she design the original model?" referring to me. 3 days later, I received an unexpected email from Marcus Webb, Senior Director at Dominion Freight. "Mara, could we schedule a brief call? I have some questions about the logistics framework. I'd appreciate your insights directly." My pulse quickened. Dominion was our biggest client, representing nearly 30% of departmental revenue. Going around Rick felt dangerous, but this was a direct client request. I kept the call professional and neutral, explaining methodologies without sharing any confidential strategy. Marcus listened intently, asking sharp, informed questions. "I thought so," he said finally. "Mara, can I be frank? We've been comparing reports over the past 2 years. The quality and accuracy are inconsistent, but there's a clear pattern. Every piece that shows real analytical depth has your signature style. I didn't know what to say. We had no idea you were behind the entire logistics redesign that saved us millions, he continued. I think we need to have a longer conversation soon. Would that be okay? I agreed, my mind racing. When I hung up, I realized something had shifted. The clients knew. They'd always known. Rick must have sensed my growing independence because his retaliation was swift and merciless. Suddenly, my workload doubled. Projects with impossible deadlines landed on my desk daily. You can handle it, he said dismissively when I tried to discuss reasonable timelines. When I requested my pre-approved vacation days for my cousin's wedding, he denied it. We're too busy. Maybe next quarter. I saw the calculation in his eyes. Break me down, remind me who had power. Then the whispers started. In meetings, Rick made comments about team members struggling under pressure, while looking meaningfully at me. He told the director of operations that I seemed overwhelmed lately. Colleagues who'd been friendly grew distant, probably hearing rumors that I was cracking. The isolation was deliberate and effective. 2 weeks into this campaign, HR sent a calendar invite. Performance review, Mara Hayes. My stomach dropped. Rick had never mentioned performance issues. This was his counterattack and I felt the walls closing in. But I'd been preparing for something like this. Don't miss what happens next. Hit that like button and subscribe to see how this unfolds. I walked into the conference room with a leather portfolio containing 6 months of documentation. Rick sat beside the HR manager, Karen, wearing an expression of concerned mentorship. Mara, we've noticed some concerning patterns, he began, his voice dripping with false compassion. Missed deadlines, resistance to feedback, and interpersonal difficulties with team members. I remained calm. Can you provide specific examples? Karen shuffled papers uncomfortably. Rick listed vague complaints, attitude problems, quality inconsistencies, communication issues. When he finished, I opened my portfolio. I've brought documentation of every project assigned in the past 6 months. I laid out printed timelines, showing each deliverable submitted early or on time. Then email chains where Rick's feedback contradicted client requirements. Then performance metrics showing my work consistently exceeded department standards. Regarding interpersonal difficulties, I continued evenly, I have emails from 4 team members and 3 clients praising collaboration. Karen's expression shifted as she reviewed my evidence. Rick's neck flushed red. This seems rather defensive, he said tightly. I'm simply providing context, I replied. Karen closed the folder carefully. We'll need to review this thoroughly. We'll follow up soon. As we left the room, I caught Rick's expression, pale, uncertain. For the first time, he looked afraid. The call came exactly 1 week later. I was working late, alone in the office, when my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Hello, this is Mara. Hi Mara, this is Evan Lancaster from Dominion Freight. I apologize for calling after hours. I got your number from Marcus. Do you have a moment? Evan Lancaster. I knew that name. He was Dominion's CEO, the man who controlled one of the largest freight networks in the Northeast. My heart started pounding. Of course, Mr. Lancaster. Please call me Evan. I wanted to reach out personally because we've been reconsidering our partnership structure with your firm. We've identified some concerning inconsistencies in reporting quality, and it's made us question our investment. My mouth went dry. Was he saying they might leave? That would devastate our department. Rick would blame me. However, Evan continued, when we dug deeper we realized something interesting. Every report that met our standards, every analysis that actually moved the needle had your methodology behind it. We'd like to discuss a proposal with you. Your work impressed us. I couldn't speak for a moment. What kind of proposal? Perhaps we should talk in detail. Are you free for lunch tomorrow? The restaurant Evan chose was upscale but not showy, the kind of place where serious business happened. He was younger than I expected, maybe mid-40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. After ordering, he got straight to the point. Mara, Dominion is questioning our current relationship with your firm. The inconsistent data quality has cost us efficiency and trust. But reviewing the past 3 years of reports, we found a clear pattern, your work versus everything else. He pulled out a tablet showing me comparative analysis. These reports, he highlighted several, show sophisticated understanding of our operations. These others are surface level, sometimes actively wrong. All of mine versus Rick's. We want you to lead a new independent logistics consulting team. We'll fund the startup, provide initial contracts, and give you equity. You'd work directly with our operations team, without the current organizational interference. I stared at him, barely breathing. Why me specifically? Because you're the real deal, he said simply. Rick Dalton has been taking credit for your work for years. We finally confirmed it. We don't want him. We want you. I should have felt pure joy, but years of corporate caution made me hesitate. Evan, I'm honored, but I need to handle this professionally. Can I have 2 weeks to properly transition my current responsibilities? He smiled, clearly approving. That's exactly the kind of integrity we're looking for. Take the time you need. Just don't burn any bridges. We'll handle that part when the time is right. We shook hands and I walked out of that restaurant feeling like I'd stepped through a doorway into a completely different life. That evening I drafted my resignation letter but didn't submit it yet. I needed to be strategic. Rick had taught me one valuable lesson, even if unintentionally. Timing is everything. Over the next few days I meticulously documented my current projects, created transition guides, and prepared my team for my eventual departure. Though I told no one yet. I even smiled at Rick in the hallways, watching him relax slightly, thinking he'd won. Meanwhile, I carefully compiled a final portfolio of my work, ensuring every contribution was properly attributed in metadata and documentation. The calm before the storm, I thought. Just a little longer. Rick's confidence returned like a tide. He started bragging in team meetings about exciting new developments with Dominion Freight. Our strategic partnership is entering its next phase, he announced proudly, clearly referring to contract renewals he believed were secured. This is the result of consistent, high-level relationship management. He didn't name himself specifically, but the implication was clear. He was taking credit for relationships he'd never actually built. I worked quietly, keeping my expression neutral, while he basked in anticipated glory. Then, 3 days before the supposed contract signing, something unexpected happened. Dominion canceled their scheduled quarterly review meeting with no explanation. Just a brief email, need to postpone. We'll reschedule soon. Rick's forehead creased with concern. He immediately emailed their account manager, who responded vaguely about internal scheduling conflicts. I watched him check his email obsessively throughout the day, his swagger fading into anxiety. By week's end, Dominion had gone completely silent. No returned calls, no email responses, nothing. Rick began pacing the office, snapping at anyone who approached him. Did you do something to upset them? He demanded, cornering me by the printer. I have no idea what you mean, I replied honestly. I didn't. Evan had said he'd handle it, but I didn't know his timeline. The emails started Monday morning like dominoes falling. First, the finance director requested clarification on data sources in Rick's Q3 projections. Then operations wanted to verify timeline claims from his last strategic deck. By noon, HR had forwarded questions from 2 other departments asking about report discrepancies they'd discovered while conducting routine audits. Rick ran from meeting to meeting, his professional composure cracking visibly. I continued my work, answering questions when asked but volunteering nothing. Other analysts in our department exchanged worried glances, sensing something major brewing. Tuesday brought more scrutiny. The CFO's office requested original source files for projects dating back 18 months. Wednesday I saw Rick being walked into the HR conference room, his face pale and sweaty. The meeting lasted 3 hours. When he emerged, he went straight to his office and closed the door. Through the glass wall, I could see him on the phone, gesturing frantically. Thursday morning, an email went out. Rick Dalton would be presenting a strategic review and confidence restoration session for executive leadership Friday afternoon. He was trying to save himself with one last presentation. And he needed me to build it. Rick appeared at my desk Thursday evening, everyone else long gone. Mara, I need your help. Just one more time. His voice had lost its commanding edge. Build me the presentation for tomorrow. Show them everything we've accomplished. Please. I could have refused. Could have watched him drown. But I needed to be present for what came next. Okay, I said simply. I worked through the night, creating a comprehensive deck showcasing our department's achievements over 2 years. Every major project, every client success, every innovation. And on every single slide, I added a small footer with proper attribution. Project leads, methodology designers, data analysts. My name appeared 37 times. Rick's name appeared 4, only on projects where he genuinely contributed. Friday morning I sent him the final deck. He glanced through it quickly, nodding approval without really reading. This is good. This will work. He had no idea what he was presenting. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. At 1:45, Rick was setting up in the main conference room when something unexpected happened. 3 people from Dominion Freight walked into the building unannounced, asking to sit in on the presentation. Rick's face went from confident to confused to terrified in about 5 seconds. I wasn't expecting, we didn't schedule, hope you don't mind, Evan Lancaster said smoothly, taking a seat in the back row. We wanted to hear this strategic review firsthand. The executive leadership team filed in and the room suddenly felt smaller, more charged. Rick started his presentation, voice shaking slightly, clicking through slides while reading bullet points he didn't fully understand. Then we reached slide 12, the logistics optimization framework. Evan raised his hand. Excuse me, Rick. Could you explain the differential modeling approach used here? Rick froze. Well, it's a comprehensive analysis of, specifically the regression methodology, Evan pressed. How did you account for seasonal variance? Rick fumbled, clicking forward and backward, searching for an answer that wasn't there because he hadn't built it. Perhaps Mara could clarify, the CFO suggested, looking at me. She's listed as the project lead on this slide. All eyes turned to me. I stood, walked to the front and calmly explained the methodology in detail. When I finished, Evan nodded. Thank you, Mara. That's exactly the level of expertise we've been working with. Which brings us to an announcement. He stood and the room went absolutely silent. Dominion Freight is excited to announce a new partnership. We're moving our contracts to an independent consulting firm led by Mara Hayes, effective next month. We believe this new structure will better serve our operational needs. Rick's face went completely white. The executives exchanged glances, several nodding as if this explained everything they'd been investigating. Evan looked directly at Rick. We're grateful for your service, but we're excited about this new chapter with the person who's actually been doing the work. The room felt frozen in time. The meeting ended in chaos. Rick tried to speak, to explain, to salvage something, but the executives had already started packing up, several approaching me with congratulations. Karen from HR touched Rick's arm, speaking quietly. We need to talk. Now. I learned later what happened in that conversation. The investigation into report discrepancies had uncovered everything. Falsified credits, altered timelines, systematically stolen work. My documentation had made it impossible to deny. The metadata trails, the email timestamps, the client testimonials, it all painted a clear picture. Rick had tried to blame me, claiming I was a disgruntled employee fabricating evidence. But then they'd brought in IT who confirmed everything was authentic. The original files, the deletion logs, the revision histories, all of it supported my version of events. By 4 p.m., Rick was cleaning out his desk with an HR escort. No farewell announcement, no goodbye meeting. Just a quiet, humiliating exit. I watched from across the office as he carried a cardboard box to the elevator, his career in ruins, built on a foundation of lies that had finally crumbled. He saw me watching. Our eyes met. He looked like he wanted to say something, but the elevator doors closed between us. That was the last time I saw Rick Dalton in person.